Welcome to another episode of Scott Reads Comics. Today we're covering Uncanny X-Men 213. What's that you say, X-Men fans? That's not the cover of X-Men 213? Well, it isn't. However, I assure you that the interiors of this book are those of X-Men 213. I came upon this curious iteration of X-Men 213 while looking for reprints of the actual X-Men 213 on eBay. And this one was listed as X-Men 213, but it actually has the cover of X-Men 212. And the reason why is it was a reprint that went along with a toy line, the Marvel Legends toy line. I'm guessing that it came with the Wolverine, a Wolverine action figure, but I don't know that for sure. Once I confirmed that it was X-Men 213, I jumped on it because it's one of my favorite issues of X-Men of all time, and I thought it would be a cool curiosity piece to have because it, again, doesn't really have the cover of X-Men 213. And it's a reprint, and I like comics like that are oddball sort of reprints. So yeah, we have a corner box featuring John Romita Jr. Floating heads. We of course have the Marvel 2050 anniversary logo here. In the original 213, we had Psylocke, because we're going to see Psylocke's debut issue with the X-Men coming off her introduction to the mainstream Marvel Universe in New Mutants Annual number 2, which preceded this story. Here we clearly says Marvel not for resale because it came with an action figure. I think this is the cover of 212. I'm not certain. That definitely looks like a Barry Smith Wolverine there. It could be a Rick Leonardi Wolverine. Rick Leonardi did 212, the previous issue. So here we have our splash page, an amazing splash page indeed, filled with color and intensity. We have Chris Claremont as our writer, Alan Davis, guest penciler, awesome. Paul Neary, guest inker, awesome. Tom Morzakowski, letterer. Glynis Oliver, colorist. Ann Nocenti, editor. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. And the title is simply Psylocke, her debut with the team. And she would become a mainstay, in Chris Claremont parlance, a mainstay of the team. Just for a bit of context, and we'll get into that a little more as we go through this issue. Issue 211 was John Romita Jr.'s last issue as the penciler. He actually teamed with Brett Blevins to do the pencils on that issue, and he's gone on, at this point he's gone on to other things. 212 is a Rick Leonardi fill-in, which featured a brief skirmish between Wolverine and Sabretooth. Sabretooth is a member of the Marauders. That self-same team, the Marauders, in the previous 2 issues, have infiltrated the Morlock tunnels beneath New York City and have massacred the Morlocks. So this is part of the Mutant Massacre storyline that's going to run through this title. It's going to run through Power Pack. It's going to run through X Factor and also New Mutants and even Thor. And there may be a few other ancillary titles that the Mutant Massacre runs through, but those are the main ones. So we start out here with our amazing splash page. I am a stranger here, Psylocke says. Like all admitted to Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, I'm a mutant, though I fear no longer a youngster. I am a telepath. Here we have her using Cerebro. She's a guest in the mansion, but she's trying to help out. She's using Cerebro to help guard the grounds of the mansion and find information about what's going on with this Mutant Massacre stuff. These Marauders are going around killing the Morlocks in just a mass killing, and it's extremely violent and disturbing, and she's trying to help. In the past, it was used to seek out mutants whose newly manifested their special talents, so they could be invited to join the school and here be taught to safely use their powers, a noble purpose that may well be done. My Psy-Self seeks out Rogue, patrolling the school's estate, extending 3 miles along Breakstone Lane and a mile inland to Graymalkin Lane. So here we have Rogue. At this point, she's a solid member of the X-Men, been with the team since 171. One of our many iterations of our costume here. And here's the Psylocke's psionic self here, materializing for Rogue to see. Forgive me, I didn't mean to startle you. Anything to report? No, place is quiet. Almost yawn, too quiet. You need some sleep. No less than you, Miss Braddock, and you got cracked ribs to boot. Don't fret none, Betsy. I'm fine. And more importantly, this is the X-Men's home turf. Protecting it is the X-Men's responsibility. And since I am not part of the team, not mine, my help will be tolerated, but only to a point, Psylocke thinks. So here she further uses her psychic self to survey what's going on in the mansion. There's a makeshift hospital that's been set up for those Morlocks that could be saved. There are many injuries are trying to be treated. And in the previous 2 issues, the X-Men have suffered terrible injuries, including Nightcrawler, who was horribly mauled by Riptide, the cyclonic spinning speedster of the Marauders. Colossus, who sustained some serious injuries after dealing a vicious death sentence to Riptide after he took Nightcrawler down. Colossus is paralyzed and stuck in his armored form. Kitty, trapped in her phasing form and slowly phasing from existence. She's here with her dragon Lockheed, who's keeping her company. And Psylocke tries to comfort her. And Kitty is somewhat comforted, but it's a rather sad situation. Moving along. Half my age, yet her courage shames me. I weep for her. As my psi self soars through the mansion to the residential wing inhabited by the school's novice class, the New Mutants, they are all gone. Disobeying orders, they entered the Morlock tunnels, no one knows why. Then those same tunnels were swept by a tremendous wave of high-energy plasma. If the mutants were in the path when the wave struck, they are surely dead. I've been searching for them with Cerebro. I will keep on until I find them, or until their deaths are proven beyond all doubt. My last stop is Cypher's room, Douglas Ramsey. So here, she developed some kind of relationship with Doug Ramsey during the events of New Mutants Annual number 2. And this is kind of, I have to say, a bit of a disturbing trend with Claremont. I love Chris Claremont to death, great writer, but he has some weird relationships between characters of disparate ages. And in this case, Doug Ramsey is Kitty's age, so up here, half Psylocke's age. Psylocke is probably 26, 27, 28 maybe. So Doug Ramsey is around 13 or 14, maybe 15. It's an inappropriate relationship even if he is 15. Not that it was consummated or suggested that it was or anything like that. It's just a weird little detail. And she says, he loves me more deeply and truly than he knows. And how do I feel? Well, I know how you should feel, Psylocke. He's a kid, you're an adult, and you should wait until he's an adult. But anyway, won't waste too much more time on that. 40 miles south of Xavier's school is Manhattan Island, heart of the city of New York, and a mile beneath its streets are the tunnels where once the Morlocks dwelled. So here are the remnants of the X-Men, including Wolverine and Storm, and then the Morlocks leader, Callisto, also a mutant, and Magneto, the recently allied Magneto, who is now the headmaster of the school. Xavier asked him to be the headmaster of the school when he went off to into space. So Magneto, once one of the X-Men's deadliest foes, is now their ally and the headmaster of the school for the New Mutants. We're wasting our time, Storm. Plasma wave swept through here, too. Might as well accept. It involved the entire network. Fire swept everything clean. I can't find even a trace of a scent, of anyone's scent. And Magneto adds, everything flammable is consumed, was consumed. The tunnels are now as they must have been before the Morlocks ever arrived. Stop for a moment here just to compliment the artwork. Alan Davis and Paul Neary at the time were one of my favorite pairings of artists, and to see them on this issue of X-Men, it was completely, as a kid, unexpected. I had no idea they were going to do a fill-in. Bought this issue off the rack, and I was so excited. I bought it 3 more times off the rack in the ensuing month and a half that it was still available. And totally great issue. And they would later, just 2 months later, go on to do another fill-in, X-Men 215. Although I'm not sure if Neary inked it. It might have been Dan Green inks on Alan Davis pencils. I'll check that for sure. I'm going to cover that one on the show too. So we'll be reading that one as well. But I just love Alan Davis's art, and I'm sure there's a huge Alan Davis fan base out there, and books like this are the reason why. Callisto says, "Nothing left, no bodies, no clothes, no keepsakes. Our existence has been wiped from the face of the stinking world. Who did this, Storm? What did this?" Storm whispers, "Lightning." Last issue, she and Callisto were fighting over what the responsibilities to the Morlocks and the X-Men were of Storm. And while they were fighting, there was lightning playing around in the background. So Callisto is putting 2 and 2 together and maybe getting 5 here. "Are you saying you're responsible for this?" Storm says, "I do not know." At this point, Storm has no powers. In a previous issue, issue 185, she was hit accidentally by Forge's neutralizer, which took all of her powers away. So we are more than 2 years into her being depowered, and with no sign of her getting her powers back in sight. And she's slowly begun to rely more and more on her close combat abilities and leadership skills to be an asset to the X-Men. So this lightning here could have been a Storm subconsciously controlling the weather, but might not have been. And Callisto's pretty upset about it. "Won't be able to follow any Marauder trails from here. Same goes for the New Mutants. Gotta figure if they'd survived, they'd have found some way to contact us." "No," Magneto says. "Believe the worst if you wish, Wolverine, and I choose otherwise. Somewhere, somehow, I am certain the New Mutants still live." Well, they do. Just check their recent issues of their book. "As headmaster, it is my responsibility to protect them. The Hellfire Club has invited me to join their ruling body. The Lord's Cardinal as White King. Perhaps I should accept." Storm is outraged. "An alliance with the X-Men's deadliest foes? Impossible." "Not so long ago, Storm, I was the X-Men's deadliest foe, yet look at me now." And Callisto basically says, face it, you need allies. So the discussion is interrupted, though. Psylocke's psychic form manifests here as this beautiful energy butterfly. "I have seen and heard enough. I manifest my Psy self, making my presence known. My news does little to improve their mood. I have a suggestion. I could Psy scan the entire country, possibly the hemisphere, for any sign of either the New Mutants or the Marauders. With Cerebro amplifying my own natural telepathic talent, I could penetrate virtually any psychic shielding." "At considerable risk to yourself, young lady," Magneto chides her. And Storm says, "We will take your proposal under advisement, Elizabeth. In the meantime, your primary task is to help Rogue maintain security at the mansion." "I can do both. I want to help, Storm." "Then Psylocke, do as I ask." So Psylocke desperately wants to become a member of the team to help the X-Men. And the X-Men are not in the most trustworthy place right now, so they're keeping Psylocke at arm's length at this point. "We could use her power, Aurora," Wolverine says. "She means well, Logan, but she is too unknown, untested a quantity." So Storm is ever the cautious leader in that instance. Meanwhile, back at the mansion in person here, Psylocke continues to scan for security, and she's musing, how do I show them, the X-Men, the tiger within? What's that? Mind flash, a stranger entering the school grounds. A Psy scan should fix his location and identity and determine whether or not he's a threat. And then she is overcome by a wave of pain, separated from Cerebro and knocked unconscious. Here we have a brief interlude in Los Angeles. We see Allison Blair, the Dazzler, with her hair dyed black. She's basically a backup singer in someone else's band because she's fallen on rough times. And she runs afoul of another marauder named Malice, who has no physical form but possesses people And when she has possessed someone, it manifests as like a choker that they're wearing around their neck with a little medallion. So she basically overcomes Dazzler's defenses, takes her over, possesses her, and now Dazzler is no longer in hiding. I am a star. I'm Dazzler, and it's time the world knew it. So Claremont, while he's left many dangling plot lines in his career, this one will not be. Dazzler's going to be careening her way toward the X-Men soon. So we'll see more from her in a later issue. Meanwhile, back at the X-Mansion, Rogue is continuing to patrol the perimeter, thinking to herself, "Ah, Mystique, if you could see your foster daughter now, bet you'd hardly recognize her. Gal who used to think only of herself, live for herself, hanging in with the X-Men to the bitter end. Kind of nice feeling, cared about others." Suddenly, though, bam, this menacing hand reaches out, sneaks up on her, grabs her, and it's Sabretooth. Bang, baby doll. You did. Which is, again, classic Claremont roughhouser patois here. Used over and over, but really cool sequence of panels here. Rogue's walking along, suddenly surprised, pulled from behind the hedge to the other side, smashed through this tree, then smashed through a boulder, and basically taken out. Now, as I've covered Sabretooth on this show before, he's been taken out by Power Man, he's been taken out by Iron Fist. His power levels seem to vary wildly from appearance to appearance, more so than many characters I can ever think of. It's interesting, and there may be an in-continuity reason for that, since he is a creation of, or he is a servant of Mr. Sinister, and that master geneticist may augment his powers or have, and I think he's been cloned a number of times, so anyway, it's fun. He's pretty powerful here. He surprises Rogue and takes her out with a couple of well-placed blows. So, pretty cool there. Meanwhile, Psylocke recovers. "Stupid bloody cow. Got careless. Forgot Cerebro amplifying my psi powers. Stranger's mind, hostile, worse than any beast's. Sudden input, more than I could stand. The stranger, he's a marauder. Must alert the X-Men." So here she's trying to get Cerebro back on and warn the X-Men when this menacing shadow appears. "If you're calling for help, sweetness, forget it." Incredible panel here with Sabretooth raking through this machinery, destroying Cerebro's connection to Psylocke. And she, "Sabretooth," she exclaims, and then another great panel here, Psy blasting him back. "He's as deadly as his namesake. Can't let him near me. Will a psychoblast stop him?" And she, as she blasts him, he rakes her arm, cutting it. "My arm. I hurt him, but I'm too weak, too groggy to properly fry his brain." So she knows she's got to get out of there. And she starts to run. And he loves that because he loves prey that runs because it makes it more sporting. "You ain't getting away from me, sweets. Not now, not ever." So I love how he's just depicted as a juggernaut of power in this issue. And he's crashing through this doorway, following her up this flight of stairs. But it looks like Psylocke's got some steel in her because she's got a little grin on her face. "Talk is cheap, Sabretooth. Prove it." So he lopes up the stairs after her. Meanwhile, Moira McTaggart is in the control room here, and she realizes that they're in trouble. "Sharon, seal all access ways from the mansion to this complex." "But Dr. McTaggart, what about Miss Braddock? Can't we help her? We two, ordinary humans against a powerhouse like that? Imagine what he'll do if he finds these helpless patients. Don't you see, Sharon? She's leading him away from us, paying for our survival with her life." All right, so pretty cool revelation there. And this Sharon character is a nurse, and Moira McTaggart is Professor Xavier's longtime associate, master geneticist and researcher, and a doctor in her own right. And They're taking care of the injured Morlocks and X-Men. Thought flash from the infirmary. Dr. McTaggart and her nurse are staying out of this. Good for them. Unless I get very lucky, they'll have plenty of opportunities to be heroes. So here, Psylocke throws a barbell at Sabretooth. You're plenty strong for a skirt. Too bad you're out of your league. This panel here is just so cool, just showing Sabretooth's raw power. And the depiction of his musculature here by Davis and Neary is just incredible. They really do a fantastic. Next to Byrne, I think their Sabretooth is the best. I like Silvestri's too, but this is pretty awesome. And I love the classic Sabretooth costume. Arrogant sod. I love to shove those words. Catch sweets down his bloody throat. And so he throws the bent barbell at her, and she goes careening out the window and just barely grabs the drain here, and clambers onto the roof. Ow, 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 ow. Never fails. The part of you that hurts is invariably the one you need the most. So she uses her injured arm to grab the roof and pull herself up here. Starting out with a set of cracked ribs doesn't make matters any easier. So here she's right over the skylight that leads into Storm's apartment in the attic. And she lands there and all the plants are around, and Storm's iconic knife and staff are there too. And she grabs the knife to defend herself. If only I knew how to use it properly. That's the spirit. So Sabretooth punches her, disarms her, and now he has her at his mercy. His psychic defenses deflecting my cybolts. He's too strong. So, my kind of gal, defiant to the end. He's about to rip her throat out with his teeth when suddenly Wolverine appears in a great long panel here. Love Alan Davis's Wolverine. Very solid depiction of Wolverine. Yo, Saber, how about tackling somebody more your speed? I was wondering when you'd show up, Runt. Love to. Soon as I've taken care of the business with the lady. Another time, villain. Tonight, Psylocke walks free. And here we have Storm in her role as a close combatant, since she has no powers anymore, using her staff to hit some nerve clusters in Sabretooth's super tough body and distract him, allowing Psylocke to clamber away here. Bad move, babe. Making me mad. That guarantees you suffer before you die. But Wolverine is now in position. You want them, bub? You deal with me first. No problem. And here, one of the best fights in comics ever drawn, in my humble opinion, unfolds. Sabretooth roars like his namesake, and then both men move in a blur, almost faster than my mind can follow. But only one of them draws blood. So again, we're getting Psylocke's view of the battle, using her psychic power. She is observing and kind of doing the play-by-play. Tasty, Runt, as always. So Wolverine misses with his claws. Sabretooth connects, and I love this panel for scale. Wolverine is 5'4", and Sabretooth is 6'6", and it's clearly depicted here in the size difference between the two characters. Really good. You gonna play this straight, boy, or rabbit like last time? Make a move, find out. In issue 212, Wolverine was on a mission to recover the Morlock's healer. And when he ran into Sabretooth, he found Sabretooth with the healer. And so he fought Sabretooth only long enough to get the healer away from him and escape, because the healer was needed to help back at the mansion. So he trapped Sabretooth in an avalanche of debris and escaped with the Morlock healer. But now, there's no more running. It's a straight up brawl. This time, neither tries anything fancy. Their hatred is a palpable presence in the room. They are the personification of violence, the darkest side of man's primeval nature brought to life. Quarter will not be asked between them, nor given. Wolverine's bones are laced with adamantium, the strongest metal known. But Sabretooth is larger, faster, stronger. His claws are natural, when Wolverine's are man-made. But that makes them no less deadly. So here they meet. Saber again slashes Wolverine, damaging his helmet. Wolverine, great shot here, punctures Sabretooth's thigh, mid-thigh there. Sabretooth reacts by hurling Wolverine back out of the attic. He goes careening along the roof. Sabretooth gets up there to face him, and they both tackle one another off of the roof and smash through the diving board into the pool. Pretty amazing sequence of action here, which shows just a sprawling, savage battle between these two. Meanwhile, back in the attic, Magneto shows up. And both men's wounds begin to heal with fantastic speed the instant they are made. Callisto has found Rogue, Storm. The child is all right. Is Miss Braddock? I look far worse, Magneto, than I actually am. And here Magneto makes some change. He's going to capture Sabretooth. But Psylocke says, no, wait. We know next to nothing about the Marauders. This is a perfect opportunity to learn. And we shall, once Sabretooth is properly restrained. His psychic defenses are formidable. Under those conditions, they'll be fully active. I doubt we'll learn a thing. But now his concentration is focused on his battle with Wolverine. I can slip into his mind without him noticing. And what of Wolverine? Is your plan worth his unwitting sacrifice? He can take care of himself, Magneto. He'll have to. Storm, I know what I'm talking about. I can do this. I'm the only one who can. For all our sakes, at least let me try. Storm says from off panel, do it. And we have this tremendous long panel here. And I can't help but think of Paul Smith every time I see one of these long panels that takes the whole side of a page up. But this is just beautifully done with Psylocke in a rippling dress here and injuries and the psychic effect around her eyes and her gorgeous purple hair. Just really well done. Calm myself. Seek serenity of body and mind. All pain will pass. My physicality is but a vessel I leave behind. As the two have so easily, so eagerly abandoned their humanity, their rage is matched by a terrible, transcendent joy. They so love what they do. And this is just brilliant. This sequence of panels here, vertical sequence, as we see the savagery depicted and described by Psylocke on the page. And Wolverine, again, you can see the scale difference here, but he's giving as good as he's getting, but it was much bigger, much stronger opponent. Just an incredible sequence. No backgrounds necessary. It would just take away from the figure work here, and it's brilliant. I love this headbutt that Wolverine delivers to Sabretooth here, likely breaking his nose. Just an incredible, incredible sequence. Here Wolverine plowing his claws right into Sabretooth's shoulder. And here we have another long panel. So we have two straight pages of this page arrangement, which I really like. Great use and great storytelling here. Great use of space and storytelling. And Psylocke continues. Images as wild as the men themselves cascade through me. Wolverine, much younger, tossed, broken, and bloody on a snowscape. They have fought before. I see other faces, hear other voices from a much later time. Marauders, and a shadow all acknowledge as their master. One could argue that this is the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. Of course, he's not named. He doesn't even really have a defined shape. It could be anyone at this point, but that is really him because he's the one behind the Marauders. And we have Scalp Hunter, Vertigo, Arclight, Scrambler, and Harpoon, the other members of the Marauders, the main members. They have a lot of members, but those are some of the main ones. It is not enough. I must find out how to deal with this master. I must probe deeper. Forgive me, my friend. And the toll, again, as we go panel by panel here, now their battle is sprawling onto the grounds of the mansion, through the wilderness, to a seascape, a ridgeside seascape here. And you can see the terrible toll the battle is taking on both combatants. They're just beaten to bloody pulps. Finally, Wolverine, I have the information we need. There is no more need to fight. We have won. Hear that, sucker? You've been conned. I kept you busy. Psylocke tapped your teeny tiny mind. And now we're going to put you away permanently. And we have a great panel here with Magneto approaching with his makeshift shackles for Sabretooth. And Rogue as well. And possibly Psylocke there as well. Smart play, Runt. I'm impressed, but you ain't taking me. Sabretooth backhands Wolverine aside and jumps off the ridge into the water below. And you can bet I'll be back. Not if I have anything to say about it. Your history, Bob. So Wolverine follows him in a swan dive and catches up to him, and they're locked in combat as they hit the water. Wolvie, you loon! Don't you know when to quit? Rogue says as she goes after him. For too long, the lake's surface is still, and then I sense only Rogue and Wolverine's presence. Sabretooth is gone. Slain, you mean? I do not know. Don't count on it. Let me go, girl. We got to keep looking till we find him. But there's nothing doing there. Sabretooth has escaped. Rabbited, as Chris Claremont would say. We searched through the night without success. And the following morning, we were lucky. If not for Psylocke, there'd have been another massacre here, and it's not over. Marauders keep coming till they get us. Unless we nail them first. But we can't hit back effectively while we're forced to cover our wounded back here at the mansion. A good point. They might well be safer at Dr. McTaggart's research facility on Muir Isle in Scotland. Sounds fine with me, Callisto says. Gotta admit, I owe Bets an apology. When the crunch came, she didn't fold. She thought of the X-Men before herself, even though we'd all put her down pretty hard. Handled herself real well, too. Ask me, she's proved herself and then some. If it's what she wants, she's an X-Man. It's very much what I want, my friend, if there are no objections. And here she has a new costume on, which is very pink. I'll say that about it. Wolverine speaks for us all, Elizabeth. Welcome to the team. So great ending here, and one of my favorite X-Men stories of all time, X-Men 213. Really cool. Alan Davis, Paul Neary guest starred on this one. Just a fantastic issue. And again, like I said, they'll be appearing again as the artists in X-Men 215, and I'll be covering that on the show. So I'd like to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe and tell your friends, and I'll be back with another episode soon. So thanks again for watching Scott Reads Comics.